kapa.ai podcast. For this one, I'm super excited because we have Daniel Lenton on, CEO of Ivy, who's on a mission to unify all ML frameworks. And to get started right away, Daniel, you have this wonderful origin story behind Ivy starting at Imperial, where I know we both share sort of a little bit of history there. Like, how do you go from starting at mechanical engineering some time ago to now being where you are today?
Sure. So I ended up deciding to do mechanical engineering after seeing, like, I think there was a poster at my high school that was like kind of a big wind turbine, and I thought it was really cool and exciting. So I ended up going into that. I did like engineering. I really liked mechanics and physics. I also almost did a physics degree. But after kind of the first year or so, we had a small course on MATLAB, and I realized quite quickly that I'm way more into the coding and the optimization side more than the engineering itself. And because it's not that easy to change course in the UK, I was kind of then locked into my engineering degree and tried to make the most of it. So pretty much I did all my planes, engines, gearboxes and stuff that I didn't find that cool, but it was all right. And then I spent my summers just doing like independent robotics projects and coding and, watching a lot of YouTube videos about Python and stuff. And thankfully then was lucky enough to leapfrog. After graduating my master's, I was then able to leapfrog into a computer science PhD, working on robotics and 3D vision, also at Imperial College. So I was very lucky to have made that jump. Otherwise I'd probably be building cars or something, which is, would be kind of cool, but it wasn't really what I was interested in. And it was during that PhD that I was working on, kind of AI and ML research, and started the PhD in 2016. And just over the course of that experience, I noticed a lot of frameworks were being used. So in 2015, everybody was using Caffe. In 2016, everyone was then using TensorFlow. It was a lot easier in Python. 2017, probably half the lab started to shift over to PyTorch. I then worked on the Amazon drone program during an internship where we were using MXNet. Others interned at DeepMind where they were using JAX. We had some people joining from Japan where Chain was the main framework of choice. And very quickly we had a lab where it was impossible for people to collaborate, really, really kind of hard to work on joint projects, and everyone just in their own little isolated islands. And I found this annoying and wanted to try to help that problem and do something about it. So initially Ivy was built so that we could have shared libraries in robotics, 3D vision, mechanics that everybody could use and share. And basically, long story short, I ended up feeling as though that problem was very much mirrored in the whole of ML. Nobody seemed to be taking it too seriously. There were things like Onyx, but they weren't that robust. It didn't always work. So I ended up deciding to dive deep down this engineering rabbit hole with this kind of stupidly grandiose vision to try to unify the field. All at the expense of my research, it has to be said, but certainly not looked back since, and no regrets. And here we are. The company was formed 12 months ago, and about to release. We're still basically pre-release at the time of recording, which is March 2023. Still pre-release, but we're about to release in the coming weeks, and hopefully our kind of thriving community becomes a thriving community of users as well, not just kind of people that back our story. But anyway, that's kind of the quick rundown of where I started and how I got into what I'm doing.
That's super, super helpful. I mean, out of sheer curiosity, how do you go actually from that idea stage, where actually would be great to have that, to all of a sudden now having some code in a GitHub repo, to now building a big team around this mission?
Yeah, so I think it always just starts small with everything, right? I guess at the beginning with Ivy, I had this grand vision, but really it was just one function here, one line there. The first version of Ivy was, a private repository, probably in 2019, that had 10 functions and a few vision functions that we would use and whatever. And it just kind of grew from that. And my kind of OCD maybe took over a bit. And I kind of thought this could be even more, and I could do more functions and more libraries, and kind of just didn't stop and just kind of mounted up. So the project reached some level of critical mass. And by kind of early 2021, I decided to kind of fully open source and release it, because at that point it actually had not been open sourced even. So it was open source in 2021. It was already in a pretty good usable state and got a little bit of attention on kind of a tweet we did, but not too much, really. And I was still kind of wrapping up my PhD and everything. And then basically, there's a few steps here. Basically, Ivy originally was just a functional abstraction layer. So it was similar to a lot of other great work out there, like EagerPy, arguably a bit like Keras, Tensorly, and others that have kind of done this unification layer. But it's not. It doesn't help everybody instantly, because you then need to write your code in Ivy before you get a benefit. So then I was just really thinking, how can we benefit the projects without needing to rewrite anything? And how can we take PyTorch Geometric, this amazing graph neural network library. How can we take Cornea, this computer vision library in PyTorch, and open them up to all frameworks without needing to write a ton of code? And that's where this transpiler idea came in. And then that was kind of really what I was then laser focused on since then, kind of early 2022. We got the first kind of ticket come in, so got a bit of funding, was able to bring on some interns, and then basically to answer the actual question you asked, the scaling up the team, so that was just kind of all pre-answer stuff. In terms of the team, so basically, I think we're very blessed to have it's very fortunate that our project is incredibly modular. So, like, there's quite a lot of engineering work, all of which is totally independent. So there are hundreds of independent tasks that can be done, which obviously is a kind of, from a management perspective, makes it relatively easy to scale up a great team very quickly, because everybody can get on with their own things without kind of crossing each other's paths and stuff. So basically, we just kind of hired a new person on the team pretty much every 2 weeks since the beginning of 2022. Wow. And haven't stopped since, and the team's just kind of continued to grow. Everybody kind of, is on board by everybody else on the team, very welcoming and explaining the whole process, being very rigorous with the docs, and everybody then reviews pull requests. That's how we've been able to go from one contributor, myself, kind of a year ago, to 800 now, and that's because everybody kind of, scales well. Everybody reviews pull requests, with an automated process, etc. So maybe that gives a bit of a flavor.
No, that's really, really helpful, because I think I took a skim through the GitHub repo earlier today, right? You just begin to realize the breadth of this, right? You scroll through the list of like the latest merge PRs, and you see God knows how many different like little GitHub, icons and so on. So it's just, I'm super impressed that there's the breadth of developers you have engaging and contributing to this code base. And maybe that like to kind of segue off of that as well, Daniel, like, clearly you realized early on that, there's a whole community aspect to this as well, both from sort of a contributor perspective and also from a user perspective. I know you guys have a pretty big Discord by now. Like at what point did you start to think about this community angle, and how's that kind of evolved since then?
Sure. So I think a few things to say is that I think at the beginning, at least, quite a lot of the initial kickstart was helped by the fact that we did quite broad outreach for internships. So we reached out to a lot of university departments, computer science departments in particular, and said, hey, would you mind sharing this email to your students, letting them know about this internship opportunity, putting our job ads out on a lot of job boards, and this kind of helped to just kickstart awareness a little bit. People then start to talk about it, word of mouth spread, and the community still today, kind of one year into development, is predominantly kind of developer advocates. They're people who have felt this problem. They've told their friends, hey, isn't it annoying kind of having all these frameworks and not being able to kind of, iterate with all the fragmentation in open source space, and then, maybe you should check out Ivy, and people star it and so on. And basically our community at the moment are, kind of developers, first and foremost, who are helping us get there. But everybody has faced this problem. They are giving us a star or joining our community because they know the pain, and therefore they're all going to be users, of course, because kind of that's why they're interested in the project. And it's going to help solve their problems. And basically the way we see community, the project doesn't work really without the community in a way. Like what we're doing requires, these 800 PRs aren't like a gimmick. It's like meaningful work. Everybody that gets involved, that joins the Discord, that raises an issue, that says, hey, this isn't quite working, or just adds one function, is all like a little part of the whole solution. And everybody that engages is really kind of being part of the unification effort. And I think community is really essential. And I don't know. I'm kind of just saying some cliche things here a little bit, but this is how it is, yeah.
No, it's very, very cool to hear your take on it, right? Because it just sounds like this natural, organic thing that's sort of emerged around the repo, right? As it grows in nature.
Yeah.
Maybe just out of curiosity, then, how do you sort of think about interacting with the community in the day to day? Like one thing I frequently hear is, right, like, at some point when you get to a certain scale, you realize like having a community like this, requires quite a bit of like interaction in the day to day. Some folks end up doing a lot of context switching and so on. Like, has how you thought about like having that community evolved over time, or is that
sure? Sure. So absolutely. Also, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. If you still had
no, go for it.
I think it's a bit of a delay. Okay, cool. So we do have to be quite proactive here, because we now have a Discord server with a lot of channels, and we get, I've not counted, but we get 100 messages a day or 100 messages per day or something, kind of lots and lots of noise and lots of good questions and everything. And what we then have done is we've separated each channel in Discord to have a different person who's responsible. So everybody on the team has a responsibility to respond to great questions we get through via email, to review pull requests, to respond to Discord questions. So we have like a very deliberate responsibility. So someone takes ownership for each of those channels, and it's generally people that are experts in that area of the project. But it is increasingly, it is a lot of work. And I think also, just to say, that's why I think what kapa.ai are doing is really exciting and definitely is going to provide a ton of value, something that we're excited playing around with at the moment. But it's definitely something that, and I think probably because there are, it is easier to the information is all in the docs, but when you first learn about the project, to kind of search through the entire docs and just do keyword-based matching when you try to do search through the docs to find answers and stuff doesn't always get you there. So I think we are increasingly getting the same questions asked multiple times. Obviously, in the thread, you can search through the Discord thread and probably find the previous question, and it can kind of answer it for you without you needing to ask. But sometimes it's not that easy to find, and we do then get the same questions asked over and over again, which is, fine. We encourage everybody to ask as many questions as they can, but it does mean that we have a bit of duplication of work, obviously. So these are some of the things. We've had to be more organized. At the beginning, a year ago, I answered every question on Discord, and that was the case for 2 months, obviously, because it was just me.
Sure.
And as time's gone on, of course, we've had to scale that a bit more. That's how I would think about it.
Thanks. Super helpful to hear your thoughts and how you're thinking about it. Maybe one question to sort of begin, ending on, if you will. Given especially what's happening in sort of generative AI, so there's so many new repos, new Daniels of the world that see problems, whether it's building tools, and they're slowly beginning to sort of, take these projects, put them in GitHub, open up the repo, get some stars, and so on. Any advice to these sort of young founders and on kind of where you were a couple of years ago, that these guys are just getting started, and girls, if you will.
Well, I feel like I'm still just getting started, to be honest. I'm not sure I would take the position of the kind of been there and done it yet, but I'll happily try.
Yeah.
I guess first and foremost, build something that you. I think so. This is kind of hard to action. Advice is hard to action on, but I think don't build something for the sake of it. Personally, I think people that just want to build a popular thing and want to be a founder or want to build a startup or something are kind of going looking for a problem, and I don't know if that works really. I think ideally there is a problem that you have and you just kind of are genuinely quite passionate about solving it, and you feel as a creating genuine value, and obviously the deeper you go, the more uniquely valuable this is likely to be, because kind of surface level things, there's kind of many more of them. So I guess just don't build something for the sake of it. Just do what you think is productive. You might be doing research, you might be doing whatever else you're doing. And then if you stumble across a deep problem where you think there's meaningful value, then just dive deep into it and back yourself to follow through with it, even if it's long term. The first line of Ivy code was written in late 2018, in the private repository that was the very origin of this, and then 2019 and stuff. So I would say that basically, back yourself. And also, the final thing is that if you have a project, and particularly when it comes to kind of getting a community around it, if you have a project that you believe is quite modular and quite parallelizable, then prioritize early, very good docs, very comprehensive explanations. We've got YouTube videos that walk the whole community through how to get involved, how to engage, because time spent, any time that you spend doing something that's quite repeatable and could kind of be, done 100 times over, just don't do that. Make the video explaining it, and then if the problem is hard enough, is universal enough, then people that are getting involved in it can help you with that. And they won't be able to help you unless you've clearly written the docs. If you hold all the knowledge and you just keep building it, then you're going to be building in isolation for a long time. So I guess the earlier you can, find repeatable bits of work that people can engage with, and prioritize making that really clear, and that the project will parallelize much quicker if you do that. These are some of the points of advice I'll give.
No, thanks a ton for sharing those, and thanks a ton for also engaging here in a bit of a conversation, Daniel.
Well, likewise.
Maybe on a closing note, where can folks go to learn more about Ivy, besides, of course, GitHub repo, community, etc.?
Yeah, well, our website, which might change at some point, so it depends on when this goes out, but we'll always have this one as well, at least pointing to the URL. So it's let's-unify.ai is our website. So yeah, let's-unify.ai is the website. Everything's there, including the blog, the YouTube, the GitHub. To be honest, if you type Ivy machine learning into Google, it's also all there. And then you can just join the Discord if you want. You're welcome to just sit in, listen along. Watch YouTube videos, whatever you want to, just get loosely involved. And soon as well, again, not at the time of recording, but most likely at the time of listening, there will also be something to actually try as well. And you can install this and play with our demos locally and everything. So I would encourage people to do that as well, of course.
Awesome.
Yeah, but it was a real pleasure. Thank you so much for hosting this, and really, really a lot of fun.